Welcome to episode 7 of Back to Beverly, and thanks for tuning in. A big thank you to my guest on this episode, Beverly Hills Mayor Lili Bosse, for taking the time to join me in the studio for a thoughtful discussion on her amazing life and work. We cover a lot of ground, from her memories of high school to her various philanthropic endeavors to the last decade plus spent as a member of the Beverly Hills City Council, and so much more. Lili is a champion and supporter of so many great causes, and the Beverly Hills community is lucky to have such a passionate, visionary woman helping to steer the ship. This was also a very special interview for me, as I consider Lili to be like a second mother, and someone who I have long looked up to and admired for her work ethic, can-do attitude, and optimistic way of looking at the world. I really enjoyed our conversation and hope you will too. So here's my interview with Mayor Lili Bosse. All right, are we good in there? We're getting the thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right. My guest today is someone who is near and dear to my heart. I've known her since I was 2 years old, and I'm so honored to have her on my show today. She's lived an incredible life of public service, philanthropy, kindness, and gratitude, and champions so many important organizations and institutions within the community. She is the proud daughter of a Holocaust survivor and keeps her mother's memory alive by sharing her story and supporting a number of Jewish organizations and causes. Over the last decade plus, she's represented the residents of Beverly Hills as a member of the City Council, currently serving her third term, and was recently installed as mayor. Please join me in welcoming to the show the mayor of Beverly Hills and my second mom, Beverly High grad class of '79, and a member of the Beverly Hills High School Hall of Fame, the Honorable Lili Bosse. Lili, thanks for finding the time in your busy schedule to join me today.
Thank you, Dillon.
So I already know we're
Love
ahead of time that we're going to have to do it again sometime soon, as we won't cover everything today, but welcome back to Beverly.
Thank you.
Unlike many of my guests, you're on campus often, so I won't ask what it feels like to be back, but how does it feel to be sitting in the Lili and John Bosse KBEV studios? And why are you such a supporter of not only the television department here, but Beverly Hills High School itself?
I'm going to answer that, but first I want to tell you what it feels like to be sitting here with you, Dillon.
Oh.
Because you are, to me, an honorary Bosse, and I just feel so proud of you. You know, as you're talking about back to Beverly and you're having Beverly alums, I mean, look at you and look what you're doing. So that's number one. Secondly, every time I step foot in Beverly, I just feel this sense of gratitude and excitement, and I just get overwhelmed with happiness to be here. So just walking through the halls, it brings me back to all the great experiences I had here.
So I take it then you look back fondly on your years at Beverly.
I love Beverly, and I really think that my experiences at Beverly shaped me. I mean, I think I'm sitting here as to who I am today so much shaped by my love of my experience at Beverly. Not to say that being in high school doesn't have its challenges, because it certainly does, you know, trying to figure out who you are and you know, who I am here today is not necessarily who I was as a high school kid, because, you know, you're kind of growing and learning to have your voice. But Beverly shaped me, my love of this community, the sense of family that you have at Beverly, the friendships that are lifetime friendships. So definitely, I love Beverly, and it's my number one passion. That's how I got involved with the city, is through my love of the schools.
So I want to take a step back a little bit. You moved here from New York when you were 9. What was your first impression of Beverly Hills?
Wow, you know, it was like what you saw in the movies, you know, as a 9-year-old, it just seemed magical with the palm trees and green and beautiful and almost like unreal. But it was also very warm and friendly. It had a sense of, even at 9 years old, a sense of community, a sense of an extended family and warmth and a neighborhood feeling in this dreamlike magical setting. So it was fantastic.
And then before you went to the Beverly Hills schools, you started at Hillel and then you transitioned to Beverly Hills. What was that transition like at a young age?
You know, it was definitely, you know, I'm glad I had the years that I had at Hillel, because you know, my parents being Holocaust survivors, the Jewish education was something that really helped form a lot of my values and things. But going from Hillel, which was kind of an Orthodox day school where the boys and the girls were separate, to 8th grade at Beverly Vista, where I graduated. Go Bulldogs! Yay! You know, where the boys and the girls were in the class together, and you know, it was a different feeling. But I loved it. I loved Beverly Vista, and I loved our Beverly Hills schools.
So after Beverly Vista, you attend Beverly and graduate from Beverly, as did both of your sons, Adam and Andrew, who, like you mentioned earlier, are like brothers to me and feel so blessed to have them in my life. What, in your estimation, makes public school education so valuable? And digging a little deeper, what makes Beverly High education so valuable?
You know, I think for me, the public education of the Beverly Hills schools was exactly what I love so much about Beverly Hills. It was a neighborhood that you would know, you know, somebody who lived down the block or somebody who lived, you know, 5 blocks away. It had a sense of connection and community, and you got to meet people from all walks of life, all ethnicities. It was just like a melting pot.
Sure.
And I think that was a great education for the world, because Beverly, you know, public schools is a melting pot. And I think it really helps you learn to, you know, what lies ahead of you. So for me, it was an incredible experience for me, and that's why it was really important for John and I that our boys had that experience. And look, because of that, you know, they met you and you're their closest friends.
Yeah, and that's part of the beauty of the Beverly Hills schools, right? Is not only do you get a great education, but you make friends for the rest of your life.
It's definitely lifetime.
And that was going to be my next question, was it important for you and John to send the boys here? And it sounds like that was top of mind.
It was number one. You know, for me, you know, when John and I got engaged and we were looking to where to set our roots, and John's from Ohio, so, you know, I said, we got to do Beverly Hills. And for me, it was, you know, police, fire, schools.
Sure.
And the schools really, I think the Beverly Hills schools not only has great education, but like you said, you know, it's lifetime bonds. And there's just a sense of connection that no matter when you graduated, you have this bond with anybody who says that they went to Beverly High. That lasts your whole lifetime.
It really does, and it's been interesting doing this podcast because, you know, when I've been reaching out to folks to see if they come on, just hearing Beverly, it's like their face lights up, they respond immediately, and they're excited and willing to join me to sort of relive these days. And I think, to your point, the Beverly connection is wide and deep, and it's sort of part of your roots.
Absolutely. I think it defines us,
Yeah.
makes us who we are.
So digging into a little bit about your Beverly experience, were there any classes, teachers, or clubs that sort of put you on your path to public service and philanthropy?
Interesting. I wouldn't necessarily say that. What I would say was I was a very social person. And I would always have, like, you know, during nutrition and during lunch, I would always say, okay, everybody, funnily enough, I'd say, come meet me in front of the library.
Oh, interesting. Not the front lawn, but the library.
Meet me in front of the library, because I thought that was like a great place. So I would say it was really more of the kids and the people. I think, you know, being an only child, I was always drawn to extended family. So for me, even though I got a great education here, it was the social element that really spoke to me at Beverly. And you know, then later on, I think I just expanded it and became you know, involved with the community as being an extended sense of family that I did here at Beverly.
Sure. I feel like that view would probably be shared by a lot of kids that matriculated through Beverly. That, you know, less the school and more sort of the social scene.
For me, anyway, yeah.
So I touched on it briefly in my intro, and you have always been so open about being the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I admire that so much. Do you think that played a role in your upbringing and your worldview?
Absolutely, and it's interesting because when I first ran for office, I told everybody that I was a daughter of Holocaust survivors. And there were people that said to me, why are you mentioning that? What does that have to do with your ability to be a good council person? And I said it had everything to do with it, because I felt that it really helped shape who I am. It shaped my values, it shaped my understanding of how important community is and work ethic. But I have to say now, at this day and age, I really see the importance of that, because now, as we've seen anti-Semitism up on the rise, as a daughter of a Holocaust survivor, I have so much courage, and I will always stand up and speak out for any anti-Semitism or any hate of any kind. And I really believe that that is because that's part of my experience. So now I see it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's an admirable quality with so, like to your point, there's so much hate and anti-Semitism out there. It's a tough time to identify yourself as being Jewish, and so I admire that you put yourself out there and will stand up to it, because it could be scary. So your mom, Rose Torrance, she survived Auschwitz and wrote 2 books about her experience. She was a very incredible woman that I had the privilege and honor of knowing for a large portion of my life. Do you feel responsibility to carry on her legacy?
Absolutely, I do. I mean, every day of my life I heard her say, never give up. That was her mantra. So I think it really resonated with me, and I think it really shapes everything that I do, to have that perseverance and tenacity. And the other part that even now, during these last few years that have been challenging, I often go back to watch her videos because she's no longer here, and I watch some of her Shoah videos, and one of them that I watch over and over again is where she talks about how she looks up in the sky and she sees clouds, and then she says, but I know that there's sun beyond those clouds, and always remember that there's sun beyond those clouds. So I often look to her words to give me inspiration in the darkest and most challenging of times. So even now, as she's not here physically on this earth, I think there's a lot to be learned from Holocaust survivors.
Amazing words and a beautiful saying, and it's nice that you have those to sort of go back to and keep the memory alive. So switching gears a little bit, you're probably the most positive person that I know.
Yay.
And you live your life by starting with yes and then figuring out how to get there.
Absolutely, it's my motto.
Can you talk a little bit about that attitude of positivity, where it came from, and how do you maintain it on a daily basis?
Well, I think some of it, as I said, was because I grew up with a mom that told me, never give up. That always said, you have to find the sunshine in the clouds. But I think I was kind of always born. I think I was born that way with, this sense of, as you said, I mean, everybody at City Hall knows my motto is we start with yes. Yep. And I also believe that there is nothing that cannot be done. I think anything and everything is possible. So I think part of that is my DNA. Part of that is watching, having parents that went through the most horrific time and still had a sense of zest and positivity for life. So I think I also had that as a role model. And I, just feel that there is so much. It has to do with gratitude.
Yeah.
Because if you find something every day in your life to be grateful for, then you can have a good day even in the hardest of days.
And is it that gratitude that gives you the energy to be positive continuously?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, I can't say that every day is positive. The last few years, 2020, when we were dealing with and we still are, a global health pandemic and the challenges that we all were facing, there were definitely some very hard, challenging days. But even with that, and as I've said, even these last 2 years have often felt like 10 years at times. But even with that, I always believe that there's going to be positive at the end. I've never been at a place where I feel we're always going to stay there. So I think it's part of my makeup.
Yeah, and it's a good way to look at life, right? I think it's so easy to look at the negatives, but it's always nice to be able to look to the positives and say, someday we're going to be out of this and back to normal. So I'd like to touch a little on your philanthropic endeavors. You're involved with so many, including the Beverly Hills Public Library, Maple Counseling Center, the Wiesenthal Center, the Jewish Federation, Wilshire Boulevard Temple, just to name a handful. But can you tell us a little bit about Visionary Women? How did it come about? Who are your co-founders? And what's sort of in store for the organization over the next few years?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so that was an organization that I co-founded with a very, 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 very close friend of mine who also is an alumni of the Beverly Hills Schools, Angela Nazarian.
Love hearing about other alumni.
Yeah, so she's an alum. And she and I were talking about how we wanted to create an organization where we can be inspired by other women who are doing incredible things. So much of my work is around men, and I have always been inspired by women. I'm a woman's woman, a girl's girl, and we thought that it would be real inspiring for us and other women to surround themselves with women who are doing different things that can teach us something. And we It's a 501c3 where we donate money for women and girl causes only. So Angela and I were the original co-founders, and then Nicole Avant, who also is
another Beverly grad.
Another Beverly grad. She started it with us, with Veronica Grazer, also started with us. So we were the original foursome, but it was initially Angela and I who had the idea to do it.
And how was the reception when you sort of kicked this off? Was it an amazing reception and welcomed by women around the world, around the country?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was Los Angeles based, and then part of the blessing of what had happened these last few years, where we had to go virtual. The advantage was we ended up doing, as most people did, a lot of organizations on Zoom. And so that enabled us to have speakers that were global, from all over the world, that we didn't have to necessarily pay to fly out.
Sure.
And the other advantage also was that we had people from many countries to be able to be tuning in. So, we're going back to having some live events now that we can be back together again. But we also are going to continue the hybrid model for some of our other events where we can have people from all around the world tune in.
It's interesting what you say, because the pandemic changed so much, and in some ways brought some positivity, some good change, right? I mean, it opened so many doors and spread the message far and wide, it sounds, where people were able to tune in around the globe.
Right.
So with all that you do, you still found time to get into local politics. You served on traffic and parking as well as the planning commission. Firstly, how do you squeeze it all into one day, and what was your experience like serving on those commissions?
I would say that I feel like I put 240 hours in a 24-hour day.
Oh boy.
And that's just part of my personality. And I loved both commissions, and how I got involved in the commissions really started with my involvement with the schools. Everything, all roads always lead back to Beverly for me, because I was very involved with the Beverly Hills Education Foundation, and I had thought that we need to showcase our city and our businesses and partner together. So I had done this walk for the schools, and it was a way to, funnily enough with health, but showcase the schools and our city businesses and such. Then I did something called the Apple Ball, which was a big charity event, and I did it at City Hall.
Wow.
And at that time, and again, kids were young, and I realized that everything I was doing somehow or other was partnering schools and city, not even realizing that it was just a natural fit. So I started on the Traffic and Parking Commission, which was wonderful because most people don't like traffic, they don't like parking. But it was a great entrance into our political system. And the boys were still really young, so I could manage the time. And then the Planning Commission is a very key commission, where that really reflects the helping with the vision of our city, the zoning, the land use and such. And really, from my perspective, an incredible training ground for anybody who's running for city council.
And the Planning Commission, correct me if I'm wrong, but they have decision-making power, right?
Yes, they do. So, I mean, they can be the final decision maker on some important issues, unless it gets appealed to the city council. But generally, they have the purview in many instances to be the final say.
Interesting. So, following your terms on the commissions, you run for city council successfully, and you're just one of a handful of women who have served on the Beverly Hills City Council. And I mentioned in my intro, but recently installed for your third term as mayor just a few weeks ago, which was an amazing installation. I was lucky enough to be there. Firstly, can you give us sort of a snapshot of what the mayor does, and then personally, how does it feel being at the helm of one of the most famous locales in the world?
Well, I think the way I do the mayor term is maybe a bit different than others, in that I give everybody my cell phone number. So anybody can reach me. I'm very accessible. So you can call me on my cell, reach me on social media, email me, and et cetera. So it's not like you have to deal with staff or something like that. You deal with me. And so that's number one. For me, it's really about connection. I don't get into oh my God, she's the mayor. It's really, again, it's like an extension of what I was doing at Beverly, but just in a more important role. It's about our residents are so incredible. They genuinely care. They love our community, and it's about being a problem solver and helping all of us, take our city to where we want to go. I don't believe being the mayor has ever been, certainly hasn't been for me, and I don't think it really can be. It's not a one woman, one man show, because anything that ever gets done, you need a community by your side to make it happen.
Sure. It's interesting you say that you give everybody your cell phone number. I know you know, but I used to work for Rick Caruso, and he was famous for giving everybody his cell phone number. And I'm just curious if people respect that you're or do you have people calling you all night saying,
yeah.
"Oh, it's."
Oh yeah, and not only, I mean, they do, and that's okay with me. I've chosen to do that.
Sure.
Now there's, now with the age of technology, now there's neighborhood chats.
Oh wow.
So now, and I'm on also many of the neighborhood chats.
Yeah.
So it's not only just the cell phone, there's neighborhood chats, but I love it because for me, I don't think you should run for office if you don't really want to be connecting with people and trying to help.
Sure. Well, it's admirable that you're willing to give everybody your contact info. So in your first stint as mayor, you instituted a Healthy City initiative, which included your incredibly successful Walk with the Mayor, where you led hundreds of enthusiastic people around walks on the city, visiting and showcasing local businesses. How gratifying was that, taking everybody around the city?
Oh, it was incredible. It was so it was energizing.
Yeah.
But what was great about it was the connections. Again, we would have a few hundred people every Monday. I mean, yes, we were out there getting healthy and walking and such, but there were real friendships that formed.
Yeah.
There was even a couple that met and got married.
Oh, amazing.
From the walk. So it was a great way to really connect with our community, obviously be healthy, and bring all these people into businesses in our city. So it had all this magic that I had no idea. But that's the great thing about our city.
Yeah.
We create magic even when we don't even realize it.
Yeah. Was it hard? Like, I know you guys visited businesses that were, maybe restaurants that were open late. Was it hard to get people to open their businesses Monday mornings, or was everybody sort of open to the idea?
Everybody loved the idea.
That's
because, how often does a business get 200? I mean,
Sure.
we had at one point 400 people.
Wow.
The first Walk with the Mayor I
Yeah.
did, my inaugural one, I think had about 30 people.
Oh, wow.
First one.
Yeah.
Then the next one, I think it went to about 60, and then went to 150,
Yeah.
and then we pretty much averaged a few hundred every Monday.
Wow.
But the first one was smaller.
Yeah. How cool was that to see it grow from just a handful of folks to
hundreds?
Yeah, I mean, you guys probably took over sidewalks and streets.
We absolutely did, and it was a great. I remember the LA Times actually did a story about it because they had heard about it, because they thought this is what leadership should be about, having the mayor actually be out, be open to the, not. I didn't want to be the kind of mayor that you have to set up an appointment behind city, City Hall with staff there, for 15 minutes, half hour, whatever. I wanted everyone to know, you want to talk to the mayor, she'll be out there every Monday at this hour and be accessible.
Amazing, because I think a lot of people think of government and they do think of that behind closed doors and almost impossible to get to. So in your second term as mayor, the walks continued, but you also started the BOLD program, Beverly Hills Open Later Days. That's still continuing today, as I believe, where stores stay open later during the summer. And for those listening,
and holidays.
And the holidays. For those listening, it's general practice for the mayor to roll out a series of initiatives as they take office in order to better the city throughout their term. My question for you is, how often does one mayor continue another's initiatives, and is that a testament to what a great program it was?
I think so. I think part of it was my colleagues and the community realized that everything is about timing. When I was mayor in 2014, it was our city's 100th centennial year. So it was a whole year of celebration and enjoying our city's 100th birthday. When I was mayor in 2017, it was during the time where the internet and online shopping really became the norm.
Right.
And then you had places like the Grove and Westfield that were putting in millions of dollars to create mini cities.
Sure.
And I felt that we needed to really show the world why Beverly Hills is still the place to come shop and dine and eat and all of that. And that's what the Bold was about.
Yeah.
Because for a period of time, Beverly Hills kind of like closed down at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
Where, and you know, I had a meeting with all of the general managers of the hotels, and they were telling me they were sending everybody to other places because there was nothing to do.
Right.
So that's what, you know, motivated it, and I think that's part of the future. Part of the future, as we've seen, is to have a vibrant, walkable city that still maintains the character of our community.
Yeah.
But I think my colleagues in the community saw that that's part of the future.
And what was, when you rolled that out, I imagine the response from the businesses was overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah. They definitely, they loved it because I think it brought, you know, especially in tourism, when you have people here in the summer, you know, some people, when you're traveling, and especially if you're coming from Europe, they're used to later nights and stores being open and all of that. And I think, you know, the Beverly Hills of old, you know, 6 o'clock, everything was closed, and then they would have to go shopping somewhere else or have to go dining somewhere else.
Right.
So it's a culture shift.
Yep. So I mentioned it a little earlier, but I was lucky enough to be at your installation a few weeks ago where you announced a slew of new programs and initiatives to benefit Beverly Hills. Can you share some of those and how lucky, I know a lot of them were focused on police with the recent uptick in crime. Can you talk about how lucky we are in Beverly Hills to have such great police and fire departments?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as I said earlier, so many of us moved and stay in Beverly Hills because of our police, fire, and schools. I had met with the police chief months before I became mayor, already planning, you know, what I was thinking that we needed to do. And, you know, I saw that things have shifted.
Sure.
You know, I think, you know, these last few years have been very challenging years for all of us. And I felt that Beverly Hills Police has always been the best. We've always had, you know, great response times. We have a wonderful, new, fantastic chief who is very forward-thinking, and I said, let's push the envelope. Let's take it to the next level. You know, we've had 2,000 cameras throughout our city already, and they were so helpful in solving crimes. I mean, if you do a crime in Beverly Hills, I would say pretty much close to 10 times out of 10, if not even that, we will catch you.
Wow.
But I think this was about let's be proactive. So now we're having a real-time watch center where there will be cameras watched. And so if you're thinking of doing crime in Beverly Hills, it's going to be difficult to do it because you'll be watched. So I'm very proud of that. There's something that is called Live 911, which, you know, right now, if you call 911, God forbid if you have to, you know, you have to go to dispatch. And we do have incredible response times. It's less than 3 minutes. But with this program, if there's a police car down the block, they literally can be with you within seconds.
Wow.
But another thing is this BHPD alert, where if any crime or anything happens in the city, police-related, the information gets pushed out directly to the residents. So. And
I think that one is most incredible, at least to me personally, because so often you hear something that happened or you hear sirens and then you're scrambling, whether you're on Twitter or you turn on the news, and often you're waiting hours to hear. Or, you know, I think there was a few months ago, there was something happening in Beverly Hills and I was getting texts, and you don't know if it's accurate or whatever. And I think part of the point of this new initiative was, let's push out real information so people are up to date. What's going on? They know that they're safe.
And that was part of it because I'm on these chats and I would see that residents would, you know, hear helicopters, see a police car, and think that it was one thing and it really wasn't the accurate information. So to me, the best way to do it is get it in real time and get it actually from the police.
Well, I think we're lucky that you rolled that out. So much appreciated. So the election, there's another city council election coming up, and also on the ballot is term limits in Beverly Hills. So assuming that initiative passes, what's next for you? I think personally you'd make a great LA County supervisor. Is there more to your political journey after the city council?
Well, thank you. So for me, regardless of whether or not that initiative passes or not, you know, I had decided that this is my final term. So even if term limits was not on the ballot, regardless, I feel very, very confident and grateful that I've had this experience. And I'm just definitely, you know, ready to have another stage of my life. But in the meantime, I, you know, like I told you, I give, you know, 240 hours of a day in and I really do believe that at least the way that I do it, I like to feel that each initiative that I'm involved with, that I'm proud of what we've accomplished. And the years that I've been on the council, I feel very proud. So when my term is up, I definitely will feel proud and honored that I've had these years.
Well, the community will miss you, but
I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be here.
Lucky to have you serve all these years.
Thank you.
So you are definitely our city's biggest cheerleader. What is it that makes you love Beverly Hills so much?
That's such a great question, Dillon. You know, what I love so much about Beverly Hills is what I love most when I meet somebody, and what I love most about you, for example, is Beverly Hills has heart. Beverly, you know, people see what they see in the movies and such, but really what makes Beverly Hills so unique and so special, and why I am so drawn to it, is because I think Beverly Hills has heart, it has soul, it has connection. It's a city like no other, and I'm just drawn to the goodness and the purity that I know that our city has.
It's a good way to put it. I feel like if you are from Beverly Hills, you are proud to be here.
Absolutely.
And I think that speaks to the heart of the city. So before I let you go, I wanted to ask, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And then in addition, what piece of advice would you give to someone from the younger generation who might be interested in a career in public service?
I think the best piece of advice that I ever gotten was actually, funnily enough, from my mom, which was to never give up. You know, I think we all have challenges, and we have times where, you know, we think something is supposed to go a certain way and it doesn't, and that's when it's an opportunity to give up or to keep going, or to recognize maybe you just go to the side, you go to the right, you go to the left, but you don't give up. So I think that has been my driving force, and that is part of the start with yes, figure out how. And in terms of the younger generation, I think, you know, as I said earlier, you know, the Lili that I am sitting here now is not necessarily, I mean, the core of who I am, the heart and soul of who I am, is the same. But I think, you know, to just really, really start with loving yourself at a very young age, and know that don't look at anyone else. Like, really focus on the good things about yourself. And I think that is what is, you know, most special about all of us individually. And I think when we're in high school, I think, you know, sometimes some people don't recognize how special and unique they are. And I think if we all just embrace and start with our own self-love, then the world's our oyster.
Thanks for that, and thanks for coming in today. This, I'll leave you with this. Some of my fondest memories growing up were spending winter breaks with you, John, Adam, and Andrew, and all the amazing conversations and laughs we had around the dinner table. This was equally a special experience for me, and one that I will cherish forever. So thanks so much again for joining me today, and I'm excited to see Beverly Hills continue to flourish under your leadership, Mayor Bosse.
Thank you, Dillon. I love you, and I can't wait to see where you're going, because you are exactly what Beverly Hills has produced at Beverly High.
Well,
lucky to have you.
It means the world to me, and thanks again for everything.
Love you. Yes. Love this guy.
Thanks again for listening. And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this interview, hit that subscribe button, leave me a review, and tell a friend. You can also find me on social at BackToBeverly on Instagram. Till next time, I'm your host, Dillon Curtis, signing off.
Did you press record?